Hey guys, this is 4.1 classifying triangles. This unit will be all about triangles, so we need to learn the basics first, so let's move on. First thing when classifying triangles by angles. Here's the first classification. These are acute angles, acute triangles that have all acute angles in them. Notice we have acute triangles here. And then these over here to the right are not acute triangles, because if you notice we have 122, which is not an acute angle, and we have 90 degrees here, which is not an acute angle either. So all three angles need to be acute in order for it to be an acute triangle. Alright, let's move on to the next one. The second way to classify triangles by angles is equiangular triangles. Now equa comes from equal, and angular is for angles, so that means all the angles are equal, and in a triangle that has to be 60, 60, 60, because they all have to add up to 180 degrees. So an equiangular triangle is always going to be 60 degrees for each angle. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Now the third way to classify triangles by angles is obtuse triangles. Now this means that they only have to have one obtuse angle. One obtuse angle. Now if you notice over here, this has two, but it's not even triangle, so that's not it. This has 90 degrees, that's not an obtuse angle. And then this one here is an acute triangle because they're all less than 90 degrees. So for an obtuse triangle, it has to have only one obtuse angle. Alright, let's move on. The last way to classify triangles by angles is right triangles. Now right triangles have exactly one 90-degree angle in it. So right here, these are right triangles because they have a 90-degree angle in them. Now if you notice over here, this can't be it because that's an acute, this is an obtuse, and this is not even a triangle. So none of these are right triangles over here, but over here it has exactly one 90-degree angle in it. Alright, next let's move on to classifying triangles by side. Okay, the first way to classify triangles by sides is equilateral triangles. Same thing as before with equiangular. So we got equa, which means equal, and lateral means side, so equal sides. If you notice, all the sides are equal. Over here, all the sides are 8, so these are all equilateral triangles. These over here are not. They're not all the same number. This one does not have any labels, and this one has 4 sides, and it's missing this side here, so it's not even a triangle either. So an equilateral triangle, all the sides have to be equal. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, the second way to classify triangles by sides is an isosceles triangle. That means there are exactly 2 congruent sides. 2 congruent sides. Now, if you notice here on this one, it has 3 congruent sides. So this is both an equilateral triangle and an isosceles triangle. Now if you look over here, this one, not even a triangle. This one has 3 different sides, so that doesn't work. And then this one is not either. It has 3 different side lengths. An isosceles triangle has to have 2 congruent sides. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Okay, the third way to classify triangles by sides is a scalene triangle. This is when none of the sides are congruent. None of the sides are equal to each other. If you notice, these are all different numbers. That's called a scalene triangle, when none of the sides are equal to each other. So we got an equilateral triangle, we got an isosceles triangle, and then we got this is not even a triangle. These are not scalene triangles because we got 3 sides equal here, we got 2 sides equal here, and this is not even a triangle. So none of these are scalene triangles, but these are right here, these three, because they're all different numbers. Alright, let's look at some examples. Alright, we're going to classify each triangle by its sides. So the last three that we've been doing, it's either going to be equilateral, isosceles, or scalene. So let's look at the first one. We have two congruent numbers, so this is going to be isosceles. I'm just going to abbreviate isos. Alright, let's look at the second one. We have three congruent sides here, 3, 3, and 3, so this will be equilateral. And I'm just going to abbreviate it like this. Alright, let's look at the third one. We got no sides that are congruent to each other, so this is a scalene. I'm just going to put scale. Alright, let's move on to the last one. 2, 4, and 6. None of these sides are congruent, so this is also scalene. Alright, one more example. Okay, for these last four examples, it wants us to classify each triangle by its angles and sides. So let's look at the angles first. We got 60, 60, 60, so this will be an equiangular triangle. Alright, now let's look at its sides. We got 8.6, 8.6, and 8.6, so this is equilateral. Alright, let's move on to number 8 there. So let's look at the angles first. We just got 57, 79, 44. These are all acute angles, so this is an acute triangle. Alright, now let's look at its sides. We got 6.1, 7.4, 8.7. None of these are congruent, so this is a scalene triangle. So it is acute and scalene. Let's move on to number 9. Let's look at the angles. We got 32, 90, and 58. This 90 right here tells us that it is a right triangle. Alright, now let's look at our sides. 11.2, 13.2, and 7. None of these are congruent, so this is a scalene triangle. Alright, let's move on to the next one. We'll go with red again. Alright, so let's look at the angles. We got 26, and 128. This 128 right here, since it's obtuse, that means this is an obtuse triangle. Alright, now let's look at the sides. We got 2.5, 2.5, and 4.5. I have two congruent sides, so that means this is isosceles. Alright, that's it for the notes. Come in tomorrow and be ready to work.